Over the course of nearly 2 decades of Halo existing, there's been some really awesome hidden things in various Halo multiplayer levels, and since there's over 100 different levels, sometimes the best hidden secrets and Easter eggs are the ones that have been there right in front of us that change or evolve over time that we never noticed. But first, have you ever wondered what would happen if Master Chief decided to start a blog where he documented all the adventures and places that he has traveled over the years? I mean, seriously, think of all the places Chief has been. Well, if he was going to document his journey, he'd probably need a good looking website, and we think he would probably go ahead and use Squarespace, who actually sponsored this video. If you're trying to build your own website, Squarespace is the perfect service for you, but more about that later in the video. So today we wanted to talk about the maps that have secrets hidden within them, whether it be subtle things Bungie hid to some really interesting homages and general cool stuff we found in the research process. Okay, first things first, this one's really unique and was actually recommended in our comment section, but way back in the day when Heretic was initially set to release in Halo 3 to coincide with ODST and the Mythic 2 map pack releasing, during a panel, some of the Bungie employees made a joke that if you stayed on that map for 40 hours, eventually the ship would arrive at the same location that the multiplayer map Assembly takes place on, which is, of course, the factory area where scarabs are made. It's pretty obvious they're joking, but I needed to be sure, so I went ahead and booted up Halo on my PC and I just let it run for 40 hours on Heretic, and sure enough, nothing happened. The Halo 3 map Isolation is actually one of the most unique ones that still to this day is so cool to take a look at. When you load up on the level Isolation, you actually will notice that obviously there is a huge flood infestation in the lower section of the level, though in the upper area the grass seems fairly and relatively okay. However, as the minutes progress since the game is starting, the flood in the grass will actually progress and you'll see the flood spreading throughout the entire map. So at the beginning of the game, the grass can look normal and healthy, and all of a sudden, when you look back later, the grass is this gross flood-like color and it's looking almost charred in one way or another. And it's just really cool that this attention to detail was put into a Halo 3 multiplayer map. And to this day, we haven't seen anything with that level of detail in a Halo multiplayer map like that. But this next one on the map Longshore is one that I had no idea about until very recently, and it completely blew my mind when I found out about it. Essentially, in 2 different locations on the level Longshore, there's this logo of Frank that actually changes during the course of the multiplayer game. Yeah, so if you watch very closely or you load up in a custom game and you just stare at these logos, you'll notice that the eyes on the Frank will slowly open up over the course of the game, which means when you start the game, the eyes are pretty much as squinted as possible and eventually open up all the way later on. And the 2 different expressions on the Franks is kind of interesting as well. I mean, it's a cool Easter egg, but we don't really know the significance of it or what the purpose of it is or why it does this. So there's kind of that unique odd factor to it that's a little uncanny, but nonetheless, it's definitely one of my favorite things about Longshore. It also resulted in us looking further into this level, and we thought we may have found a possible Virgil reference as well, as there's this hidden camera that will follow whichever player is the host, which is kind of funny. We've seen this on other multiplayer levels too, but just the fact that it's here and we're in Mombasa technically as well, even though we're kind of in this separate subsection of it. I don't know. The camera following me, a little spooky to me. Also, speaking of Virgil, on the level Breakneck in Halo Reach, we actually see the Superintendent logo all over the place, which is kind of cool considering when they put this map in Halo Reach, they added in little touches from ODST, which is really appreciated. But we also noticed, besides the SI logo everywhere else, you can realize that if you look back into the skybox, the bridge resembles heavily the same bridge you drive across in Uplift Reserve or you drive past on Coastal Highway in ODST. It makes sense since this is thematically in the same city, though the geography doesn't actually quite work out in the grand scheme of Halo, so it kind of can't be that accurate, but still, it's a really cool homage that we appreciate. Okay, in the earlier days on Halo Combat Evolved, there were a lot of really static sandboxes that were beautiful to look at when you played in those Halo games, but as Halo as a franchise progressed, the newer multiplayer maps definitely did different things to make it feel more like a living, breathing environment. And in Halo 3, the level Blackout is a great example of this, because not only is it this evolution or different version of Lockout that was built to fit into how Halo 3 played, for better or worse, but we've always loved the aesthetic of this level. And as it turns out, on this level, if you stare up in the sky for exactly 5 minutes, or you just look at the timer, and when it gets down to the point where it has been exactly 5 minutes since the game started, a red shooting star will pass by. This happens every 5 minutes. It's very quickly. It's one of those blink and you miss it things that's really cool, but it definitely is one thing I did not know about until very recently. And the amount of times I've played on this level, or that I've played Halo 3 and never noticed this, just kind of makes me wonder what else is hidden out there. Matter of fact, as it turns out, this shooting star also appears on the map Sandbox. So if you were big on custom games and Forge back in the day and you never saw this happen, just goes to show there's things that happen right in front of us that we have never really recognized before. Okay, and before we get into the next set of maps, we just want to take a quick moment and thank Squarespace, who sponsored this video. They've been really good to us on this channel and have supported our content quite a bit in the past. If you're looking to make your website clean and interactive, Squarespace makes it really easy to do with their customization tool that has a ton of designs that you can customize in a bunch of different ways. There's categories that offer anything from podcasts to online shops, all the way to blogs and other things. And you can even schedule posts for your website, meaning that if you're the type of person like I am and you stay up all night just working on stuff, you can actually post your post at a time that makes you look like a normal person. And they even have a commenting feature so you can interact exactly with your community, and that is really awesome. Also, you can learn a lot about your website data, as they have one of the best analytics tool out there for websites, and we know how important it is when you're trying to grow an audience or build a brand to know who is actually interacting with your content. And being able to figure that stuff out is integral for growing any type of online entity. And once you have your website designed the way you want it to look, you can purchase your own domain to make your website stand out even more, make it look like a professional thing, or you can just integrate your already owned domain onto Squarespace, make it really easy to use. And if you head over to squarespace.com/rocketsloth, you can save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain name using code, RocketSloth. Okay, back to the maps. Going on to Assembly, there's definitely a lot going on in this one, and this is interesting because there's so much lore and cool things hidden on this level, but because of how this multiplayer level plays, I feel like I've never spent a lot of extra time just looking at it for the aesthetic and the world building that goes on here. You can see little worm things from like hunters in the test tubes, which we find out later is actually how the scarabs function, and this was our first confirmation of that, which was really cool. We get a ton more glyphs that constantly change throughout the game, so there's even more glyphs changing that we can overanalyze if we feel like doing that later. Well, then on top you can actually see some of the scarab factory manufacturing stuff start to happen, which we thought was really awesome. And Assembly is definitely one of those underrated maps that has a really unique skybox and has a lot of world building, lore, atmosphere, and secrets that often gets overlooked. So we wanted to start looking more closely at some of the other skyboxes as well. On Pit, it was always triggering to me because besides the fact that this level constantly changes by having the targets pop up and out and, make you think you're supposed to shoot something you're not supposed to. Maybe I just am not that good at Halo 3. The outside atmosphere always seemed really calm with not a lot going on, but I did recently realize that there's an Easter egg in the phone that if you punch the phone off of the wall and you look at the bottom of the phone, there's a Windows XP logo just there, reminding us of the better times where that loud noise of Windows XP booting up at the odd hours of the morning used to give us a mini heart attack. Also, in the Halo 4 version of this level, they decided just to upgrade it with the skybox, where if you look outside at the surrounding area, it looks like there's a straight up apocalypse going on out there, just meteorites are crashing down. Never noticed this before, but for whatever reason, I really appreciated it. Also, something really interesting they introduced back in Halo 2 were these seasonal signs. First showing up on Zanzibar, there were these signs that would only appear on certain days of the year, and depending on if you were online on the right day, you could see these signs for yourself. Halo 3 continued that tradition by having seasonal signs on Valhalla, and everyone knows about that. But even on level Longshore, going back to that level, the menu will change based off of if it's one of those core holidays that causes the signs to update. And in Halo 2 Anniversary, there's a really cool homage to the signs that originally appeared back in Zanzibar, where if you look underneath this staircase, you can see a bunch of signs that would typically appear in the water kind of scattered under there, which was a really cool and subtle way to acknowledge a secret that Zanzibar was known for all the way back in the day. On the level Standoff, everyone knows about the developer that has his face in the moon. There's even an achievement regarding it. But one thing that I did not know about, if you look over at the satellite dish with a sniper rifle, you can actually see another developer, 3D artist Travis Brady, just chilling up there. And I never knew about that because there wasn't an achievement telling me to go look there in the first place. Also, on this Halo 5 Guardians map, if you wait in this specific area and activate a few different things that trigger within the multiplayer level, you actually can have this giant sandworm just come out of the sand, which is absolutely bonkers. What? I know a lot of people who play Halo 5 a lot already know about this, but this one, wow, it reminded me of that one picture that was always circulating around when people were speculating what Halo 4 would have looked like, but like before Reach and way back during the Halo 3 days when Halo 4 was quote unquote leaked early, and it was, you know, that picture reminded me a little bit of that, but more terrifying. But hey, if you guys liked this video, make sure you guys hit the like button down below and be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this. We sometimes try to do good videos.
And also make sure to follow us on Twitter at Rocket Elijah. You can follow him over here, and at Rocket Sloth Luke. You can follow me. So make sure you follow both of us there. And thanks for watching our videos. We'll see you next time.